Hey guys, thank you so much for coming to see this talk. We're talking a little bit about money, and of course you guys are at exactly the right conference for that. Obviously there's a lot of money in the world right now, and so in order to sort of figure out where tech is going to go, let's first talk a little bit about where we were. And so our talk in sort of 3 acts. First off, a new hope. The past 10 years have been amazing for startups, to be frank. It's been an incredible ride. And so let's start off, and I'm preaching to the choir here. You wouldn't be at this conference if you didn't believe this, that software is eating the world. And so in a more subtle way, what this really means is you can walk into any office building in the world, look around, and see how people are doing business. Are they using file cabinets? Are they using fax machines? Or look at what's happening on their computers. Are they still using Excel? If so, well, that bodes poorly for that company, because if you walk into any company in the next 10 or 15 years, it seems highly likely that that will actually be replaced by really, really smart software. And so you all know this. And so who writes the software? Well, going back to how startups actually get made, it really does go back to the software engineers, the designers, the builders, the people who actually are in this room right now who have that great idea right inside of you. And the strange thing is, what does it actually take for true builders who are just starting out to actually start? Well, it takes less than ever. And so that's the strangest thing about the sort of world we live in today. Even though there's more money than ever, startups actually need less money than ever. And so that's definitely been true, especially in the past 10 years. You only really need maybe 100K, maybe even 10K, not 10 million to get started. That's my co-founder for Initialized Capital. He co-founded Reddit in 2005. The whole company only ever raised $80,000, period. And just last week, it was announced that on Alexa that Reddit actually has more trafficked users on any given month than even Facebook. And so it truly means you really don't need that much money. Over and over again, from my experience as a partner at Y Combinator, that's sort of the playbook that has played out over time and time again. Airbnb started as a very simple website just to rent out literally an airbed on someone's loft in San Francisco. In fact, the founder's loft. 6 years later, they basically actually sleep more beds than Marriott and Hilton combined. And so this playbook sort of plays out over and over again. Coinbase was just one person when I met Brian Armstrong in 2012. Bitcoin was this oddity that people didn't really pay attention to. They heard about it on Hacker News, but no one was going to run out and devote their whole careers to it. But Brian Armstrong actually quit Airbnb right at the moment that Airbnb hit multi-billion-dollar status. And so today, the company that he started then has more accounts than Charles Schwab. And I'll add that it's a rumored billion-dollar revenue for 2017. And so this idea of incredibly low amounts of capital creating really, really powerful companies, well, back in my old employer, my old mentor, Paul Graham, right there in the middle, really sort of helped shape this whole world. And so that was then, this is today. And so I'd like to say that actually what a lot of huge money entering tech means for tech is that it's actually not startups at this very moment that are capturing most of the enterprise value. It's actually big tech. Nearly $2 trillion worth of market value has gone to Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Google. $2 trillion. And so if you think about it, it's actually an order of magnitude more than what has happened in all of startupdom combined. And this is kind of a crazy thing to have actually happened, in that now AI And machine learning algorithms actually mean that these big companies have more data and more access to that data than anyone else. At the same time, the crazy thing is, out of 30,000 public companies that exist today, a full quarter to a third, according to BCG, will actually go out of business or be acquired in the next 5 years. That's a crazy amount of disruption. And so what we thought was software was going to eat the world. Big tech is certainly eating it now. But I have some good news. We still think startups will eat the world. Why is that? Why is there still opportunity, even though big tech has never been more dominant? Here's why. Software engineers. Again, going back to the builders and creators, the people who are in this room, they're the limiting reagent. Because if you think about it, there are actually very, very few people in the world who are actually capable of building truly great software. And I've got a great example for you. I bet a lot of you here live and die by your calendar. Can you imagine, out of all of the engineers that Apple has, they put those engineers on calendar, the buggiest thing in my life. And so, truly, software engineers are the limiting reagent. Even Apple can't put enough good engineers on something so simple as calendar in order to actually have great software at that level. And so, if Apple's having trouble, well, where are they going to go? Are they going to go work for non-big tech companies? Are they going to go work for, companies that have no capability to ship great software? No, they're either going to go to big tech companies or they're going to go to startups. And that's really, really good news for the people in this room. And so the good news is we're sort of entering this new phase of the return of the Jedi. Why? Because we're actually entering this existential phase for those 30,000 public companies. Software's eating the world, and big tech is sort of taking all the air out of the room. I'll give you a really good example of this. We funded Instacart when Apurva himself was actually a single founder. Remember last year, Amazon actually ran out and bought Instacart's #1 partner, Whole Foods. And I remember my partner, Alexis, was going on CNBC that day, so he hurriedly called Apurva on the phone and said, "Hey, I know they're going to ask me about this. What do you say?" And Apurva said, "You know what? This is great." And a year later, it's turned out to be absolutely true. Today, they've actually signed every major retailer that was in their pipeline when that happened, including Walmart. And they just closed another round. They're certainly on IPO track, and it basically, big tech becoming extremely dominant was the best thing that could happen to this startup. Likewise, Cruise Automation was a YC startup that I funded when Kyle was just starting out as well. And today, we're talking about autonomous vehicles like they're coming, ideally in the next 5 or 10 years. This is one of the first startups to actually go out there and say, this is something we can really ship. And GM, they acquired them a few years ago, and of course, SoftBank Vision recently put another large capital injection into them. And so, here's the good news. The Jedi live. One of the things that I think is easy to lose sight of is actually that we live in sort of this world that's extremely, extremely broken. And one of my favorite things about my job as a VC is that I get to work with really, really smart builders. And there are actually a whole lot of them. In fact, they're right here. It's you guys right here. And so, finally, obviously, there's infinite capital. And so the really incredible news that I have for you here is actually the opposite of what the proverb says. Most people say there's too much capital chasing too few people and too few ideas. And that just couldn't possibly be true from where I'm standing. We live in a world of infinite problems, and then infinite people to go and solve those. And so the infinite capital part, that's great. Thank you guys so much for listening to my talk. Take care.